They were terrified, saying it is a ghost, and they cried out for fear. So what's going on here? On the one level, Jesus is preparing his disciples for what comes later. This comes right after the feeding of the 5,000, Passover, pointing to the Eucharist, the Last Supper. And now they see him and they think they see a ghost because he's walking on the water. Easter night, he appears to them in the upper room behind locked doors, and they think they see a ghost. The point here is that if he can walk on water, he can rise from the dead. The one gets them prepared for the other. Likewise, Peter, if Jesus bids him to walk on the water, he can do it. Later, Peter, as an apostle, as pope, will have to do exactly what Jesus did during his lifetime. And we read in Acts that he does. He heals the sick, he raises the dead, he suffers for Christ's sake. His apostleship, in other words, is not just proclaiming the right words. It's manifesting the presence of Jesus in his own person. So it gets him ready to be an apostle. It also teaches him how he can be an apostle. He has to trust Jesus. He can't trust himself. And as soon as he loses that focus on Jesus, here, walking on the water, what happens? He sinks. The same will happen during his apostleship when he tries to depend upon himself or he becomes afraid of the worldly adversities. He'll fall. But even then, what happens? He's with Jesus, says, Lord, save me, and he does. So, on one level, this is a story about God's providence. He is preparing the disciples for the fullness of their mission, which comes later. He does the same with us. He knows what we're going to have to face later, and he gets us ready for it. So, we can trust him, be grateful that he's in charge of our lives. He provides what is needed. On another level, it's a story about fear. Fear comes in frequently in the story. It is at night, remember? Things are always kind of bad in the dark, at least worse than they are in the daylight. They've been rowing, the wind is against them. That's a little scary too, if not frustrating. It is, being at the time of Passover, it's somewhere near the full moon, but with the wind there may well have been clouds. Enough light to see Jesus when he draws near to them, walking on the water. They see Jesus doing what is impossible. People don't walk on water. So I don't think we should be too hard on them when they are afraid and think that they see a ghost. That is, in the event, to them, the most likely explanation. But what does Jesus say to them? Take heart, have courage, be of good cheer. It is I. I'm not a ghost. I'm me. But he's doing what normal human beings don't do, which tells them that he is divine. And so at the end of the story, they confess the Son of God. They've gotten the point. But Jesus says it is I, have no fear. To be with Jesus means we don't have to be afraid. You don't have to be afraid of the wind. You don't have to be afraid of that which you cannot explain. You don't have to be afraid, period. And fear with Jesus is unnecessary. Indeed, it's inappropriate when Jesus is present. The same is reiterated in Peter's walking on the water. He sinks only when he comes to fear the wind and the waves. It's fear that gets him into trouble. And Jesus says to him, "Why did you doubt?" Fear leads him to distrust, to give up his dependence upon Christ. And I think if Peter had answered, he would have said, "Because I was afraid. That's why I doubted. I was afraid." Fear, of course, is of various kinds. There's good fear. The fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. Stand in awe, fear, and sin not. But here I think we're talking more about the bad fears, the ungodly fears. The demons fear Christ and hate him, not just because he's more powerful than they are, but because he's good and they're not. Peter feared Jesus at the first great catch of fish. "Depart from me, for I am a sinful man, O Lord." He feared because he perceived the presence of God in his boat. And I think perhaps some of that fear is present here with the disciples in the boat, with the wind and Jesus walking on the water. He is God as well as human. The scribes and the Pharisees feared Jesus because they were afraid he would disrupt their lives, their plans for things. They were right. He is a disruptor whenever there is selfishness. And I suspect that comes up with us sometimes. We fear that Jesus might disrupt things. Indeed, whether consciously or not, there's part of us that says from time to time, well, if I let him in to my heart, he might want something. He might want something that I don't want to give him. And then it'll be too late if I've already let him in. So we'll just keep him at a distance here. We'll keep arm's length. I would suggest to you that that's not a good policy, but all too human in our fallen selfishness. So, to have godly fear requires two things. In the first place, it requires humility. We have to recognize that the disparity between us and God, we're his creatures, he's the creator. We owe him reverence. And to reverence him requires that we humble ourselves before his majesty. We have to know our unworthiness. We have to keep a sense of God's glory as opposed to our own glory, which is minimal, and that part of it which is real is reflected from his glory. The humility to recognize that it is always God who saves us. We never manage it on our own. However great our efforts are to respond to his love, not to earn our way into heaven. So godly fear requires humility. It also requires a focus on God's love for us. He's not out to get us, waiting for us to do something wrong so that he can punish us. He wants to love us into heaven. So, with that sort of love, what is there to be afraid of? In terms of the ungodly fears now. So, this is where your job comes in. What are you afraid of? Take a few minutes sometime and look at your heart and say, where are my fears? You might be afraid of failure, whether in your worldly endeavors or even in your Christian life. But you see, if we depend on God, then there's no reason to fear failure, even sin. Are you afraid of shame and humiliation? Afraid that people will find out what you're really like and not the facade that you put up? Are you afraid of the dark corners in your heart that you don't even want to look into? Afraid of what might be there? You don't have to, because God's grace is greater than the darkest corners of our hearts. Are you afraid that your children will misbehave and humiliate you? Or you teenagers, are you afraid that your parents are going to humiliate you? Not worth being afraid of. Are you afraid of God's judgment, that we're not good enough for heaven? Well, of course we're not. We never will be, but he gives it to us anyway. Those are ungodly fears. We deal with them by humility and love, by godly fear. When we fall to ungodly fears, we should do what Peter does. Lord, save me. He will. We don't want to be distrustful. We don't want to doubt. We don't want to let our fears interfere with his grace. So, Lord, save me. And he'll pull us out. He forms in us the humility, the gratitude, the awe, the reverence, the godly fear. And he will give us his love, which casts out fear.